Hi guys, so the government are finally implementing their one in, one out immigration system. This deal that they've done with France, which involves sending an asylum seeker who has crossed the channel in a small boat back to France and replacing them with somebody who's currently in France but has some connection to the UK via family or whatever. Now, it sounds a little bit like the Reform UK's net zero when it comes to immigration policy. But is Farage being pandered to here? Is the Prime Minister using the type of rhetoric that people on the right are interested in? Is this actually going to work? Well, have a listen.
Some breaking news to bring you, and the first illegal migrants have been detained under the country's new migrant deal with France. The Prime Minister has been on social media to announce it. He has tweeted in the last few minutes, "We have detained the first illegal migrants under our new deal before returning them to France." He goes on, "No gimmicks, just results. If you break the law to enter this country, you will face being sent back." He writes, "When I say I will stop at nothing to secure our borders, I mean it." And also this hour, the Home Office has published some of the details of the scheme for asylum seekers in France who can apply to come here under the terms of this agreement. It's a way for asylum seekers in France to express interest in coming to the UK. Under the deal, they'll need a phone, an email address, they'll need a copy of marriage or civil partnership certificate, they'll need a birth certificate of children if they want to come. Now, this also says, do not express interest in coming here if you are not in France, you've previously entered the UK illegally, have international protection from another country, are officially recognised as stateless by any other country, or are an EEA national. There are some more reasons as to why. If you've previously been refused entry here, you need not apply. So that scheme now underway. This one in, one out deal with France has begun.
Okay, so a few things to say about it before I get to Keir Starmer's tweet. It says in this report that people who have documentation will be allowed to make a claim. But that is not a requirement under UN conventions. So what is Keir Starmer doing here? What is the Home Office doing? They're setting a sort of... This could be a bit of smoke and mirrors, because if people are currently in France and they cross the channel into Britain, they can claim asylum when they get to Britain. So the government seem to be doing... What they're doing here is a bit of smoke and mirrors in the sense, well, you can show interest in claiming asylum in Britain if you have the paperwork. Now, we know that most people don't have the paperwork. Many people don't have passports in some cases because the people smugglers hold on to those passports. Many people don't have passports because they haven't been able to, maybe those passports were confiscated before they left the country. So to set a standard like you need to have a passport or you need to have paperwork, well, sets an unreasonable standard in many cases, because you can't say, well, you're not allowed to go into the country. You can't claim asylum unless you have the paperwork. Many people don't have the paperwork. But it's not about people who are already in the UK. It's about people who are currently in France. So you're setting a sort of standard for people who are not in the UK that I don't know whether it's legal or not, whether it respects UN conventions. But once again, the UN convention only really applies to people who are currently in the UK. So this really applies to people who are outside the UK. But how do you apply a standard if it's outside your jurisdiction? There are so many questions to ask here. Now, I'm more interested in the rhetoric. You can see here, Keir Starmer says, we have detained the first illegal migrants under the new deal before returning them to France. They're not illegal. If they have arrived in the UK and they put in a claim for asylum, that claim has to be processed. They have a right to put in a claim. So what is Keir Starmer talking about when he says illegal migrants? Are they asylum seekers? Are they people who when he says detained, are these people already in the country? Have they not the correct paperwork? Have they been rejected? Are these the people he is sending back to France? Because it can't be the case that somebody has just arrived today, for example, has been picked up by Border Force, and then they're being sent straight back to France, because under the international conventions, they should be allowed to put in an asylum claim. So there are many questions to ask here. Who are you sending back to France? And how are you going to set a standard for people to get to the UK if they're currently in France, saying that, well, you need to have the correct paperwork and stuff like that? You're setting an unreasonable standard, but also you're applying it to people who are not currently in the UK. So how the heck would you enforce that? None of this, or very little of this, makes sense. So we'll have to wait for more details. Stormer says this is not a gimmick, but unfortunately it's sounding a little bit like a gimmick. Now, the Conservatives and Reform UK have said, well, the problem with this is that the numbers are too small. But I think the problem is not about the numbers. The problem is the legality of this. Can you actually do this? I don't know. So it would be interesting to hear from some experts. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.